if I'm looking for any multiple training blocks overlapping each other, like where I'm looking for multiple training blocks leading momentum into each other, that's kind of when I'm looking into back-end deloading more, because that back-end deloading is basically like where you start deloading in the final week of the block, right? In that final week of the block, or even within like week to week, you kind of just start adjusting volume as well as intensity in other areas so that it starts showing up a little bit more on your primaries, and then you kind of just like start adjusting things according to that, right? So for example, if you have your week 4 being like high RP workload, like an RP8 session, right? You have primaries as RP8. On week 3, you might push the secondaries a bit, and then on week 4, you'll kind of taper that out so that you can get the primaries to move better. And that is usually done when you want primaries to move better, but at the same time, you kind of want to move into the next phase of the block, or the next block, or the next phase of the macro, or the next block in a more like momentum based thing.
Sustainment.
Sustainment. So what you do is like you have a 4-week structure where you're kind of starting here on week 1, and then week 2, week 3, you're kind of somewhere here, and week 4 you push somewhere above. If you push too hard, what will happen is that week 1 of the new block, because you ended week 4 of the previous block here, week one of the next coming block has to be a deload where you start much lower, right? Whereas if you do something like a back-end deload, you'll end somewhere maybe not as this high, you'll end somewhere here, but as a result of saving yourself a little bit, you can kind of start week 1 here, whereas week 1 of the first block is somewhere around here. So you're slightly above. In the second block, you're slightly above than what it was on week 1, right? So then you have the opportunity to build again, and maybe this time, week 4, you'll end a little ahead of what you ended on week 4 of last block. And then because you haven't still pushed to top end max here, you can again on the third block, if you end week 4 here, week 1 again, you can start here. Whereas week 1 of block 2, you were here. Week 1 of block 3, you're slightly higher. And then week 4 of block 3, you end at a point where week 4 of block 2, you're still slightly higher, but you're still saving yourself. And then you continue to gain momentum like that from block to block. So that kind of a structure is usually where we use block and deloads, where we're not looking to take full-fledged deloads at the end of each block, right?
Yeah.
And then like a complete deload is when like you have somebody, like the one person that I can think of that does this is that I have a lifter who does a very good job of using RPs as intended, but he'll also kind of have that mindset of like, I'd rather slightly undershoot than overshoot, right? Which is good. No problem with that. But as a result of that, what I can do with him is push him to an RP8 workload, and he'll still be at RP7, right? So I can still push him to an RP8 or 9 and then take a full-fledged deload for him, because he overall isn't accumulating the kind of fatigue by pushing too hard. So for him, that works really well, where I can push him hard and then take a deload. Whereas for like a good number of other people who have a problem with stringing good training sessions together or training blocks together, for them, I will most likely use a back end deload so that they can continue to build momentum from block to block.
So it's like you kind of have to have a solid understanding of the macro cycle objective there. Like you want to kind of look at like not what you can build in like 4 weeks, but what you can do in like a 12-week like objective, right?
Yeah. I mean, you're always looking for long-term, in training. You shouldn't be looking for short-term either. Unless you have like time constraints or something of that sort, I don't think you should be worried. Like you should be thinking about short-term.
Because a lot of people ask me about like what do you look at, like what is a deload? What do you want to do in a deload? And like sometimes people pull all the stimulus out for no reason. Like for example, like I've noticed like a lot of females, like they get these massive deloads and then they'll come into the next block feeling flatter than a pancake because there's just no stimulus in the system for them, right? Like again, as the athlete, like for example, we can't account all women into this situation because you'll have someone like Wallstrom or like Agatha Sitko who like have so much absolute stress because of the load they're exposed to. But if you're someone who's like totaling less than 200 kilos, you may not need this, right? It may not be your thing.
Yep.
Is there any other